person to the mic?
Okay.
Come to the mic.
Let them yell.
No, I want him to come to the mic.
You know, I wanted to just say from maybe the perspective of someone who wasn't born at the time, this is very fascinating. It's something that I have not had such an intimate look at ever before. And listening to you speak in the context that you said of fear and dark places and this and that, I expected a much more tentative expression of your pride. And when you looked at the pictures and saw how boldly in that first march, people with the little top pants and I was very surprised. So, you know, just again to reiterate the thanks and the kind of acknowledgement of how really amazing it was.
It was an idea whose time had come.
I think very much. Too much emphasis on the dark and the fear and everything else. I think many times it's convenient. It makes good politics. But I think in many ways it is overemphasized. That is, by 1969, certainly and when Stonewall occurred, within that year, tremendous changes even in the village occurred. So that all the people that you see at the first march, you know, it's a year after Stonewall. It's a year after GLF had been around. It's a year after GAA had started its various campaigns. It's a year after a lot of this publicity going out, the realization these people came not because, you know, all of a sudden that they realized, but because a community had already beginning to be built, as well as it was already the counterculture. It was, what, 3 years after the Summer of Love? And going to San Francisco, flowers in your hair, all that. So that I think it's wrong to overemphasize. There was certainly some trepidation, some fear, some uncertainty, but it's not necessarily in the darkest days that all of a sudden, you know, these people just came out. There was a faggot culture already in Greenwich Village for half a century before.
I just want to say, I don't completely agree with that. The reason Stonewall happened was because we really had no place. Stonewall was one of the very few places where we could dance, and we had, the police would constantly raid it. We did sort of live in the shadows. We were very bold in the shadows, but we were in the shadows. Mostly gay people were on Greenwich Avenue and Christopher Street, and even there we were harassed constantly. I was beaten with nightsticks by the police. If two gay men walked together, they were harassed and called faggots. And that was 1969. So I think that, you know, my shadows thing fits a lot. And
the bars were all controlled. The bars were all controlled by the mafia. Everything was controlled by something else. Yes, there was a culture, and we learned how to live within that culture and have some pretty good times and creative time. But it wasn't a culture that we made, that we created, that we were out about. That's one of the differences. It's not a denial of what went before.
Yes, but you know,
we can see them.
The village wasn't the only place. I mean, I went to a gay bar in 1966, part of the Bird Circuit, in Midtown. Prior to
Mafia
Stonewall
bar.
And all that, there was Tony Pastore's in the village, which had dancing.
There were bars, Michael, but you were always worried about being raided and arrested. Always. Always. It was a fact of life
I guess
for
I
us.
was naive.
I guess you were.